Hey
filters the
Rich,
lies.
how you
I
doing?
Hey, all
need a
right. How are
place
you?
where the
Pretty
vibe
good.
is real, where the talk is deep,
It's the Kornerz
and the
theme song.
friendships heal. No more chasing likes, no more chasing views.
Gotta keep it going.
Just a space where I can be me and you can be you. Drop into
This way
a
we can
nook, yeah,
get
let's
ourselves in
start a
order
chat.
here, ready
Real
for
talk,
everyone.
real time,
Let's
imagine
get it
that.
popping. So, what do you think?
Oh, where the real ones go, no feeds, no fakes, just a
I
space
love it.
to
I
grow.
love it.
Nooks,
Love
loops,
the
sparks ignite.
holiday
Let's
season
talk all
spirit
day,
that
let's
came out.
vibe all night. Loop me in, got a
Yeah,
thought to
I
share.
think this is
Sparks fly high when the
the
combo's
trick of
rare.
a lot of
Step in the
people
spotlight, grab the
for the
mic.
holidays.
Big ideas shining bright
For everyone to
tonight.
get
Not
together.
just likes, we're voices loud. Breaking
This
free from
one
the scrolling crowd.
is
Join the wave, be part of the
an
sound.
interesting one for
Corners is
everyone.
where real talk's
A
found.
lot of people, where of family members and the grief that comes with that, and that empty space at the table, things like that, and how to deal with that, and how to how maybe to celebrate as well, because it's not always about ending it. It's about really starting a good new tradition.
Definitely.
I think that's the biggest trick, is the getting that new tradition going.
Yeah, and it's such an important moment, throughout the year that a lot of people kind of expect to it, to come together, family, friends, and whole neighborhoods come together to celebrate something, And obviously, as we've been talking about, it brings joy, So yeah, that's amazing, brother.
It's all the tricks, it's how do you get the most out of it? How do you um, improve yourself with it? And I think it's really about getting the getting through those tough times, because I myself know I've been through several family members that I've lost, and it's not easy. There is no magic wand that makes it get better. Um, but there are tools that we can do, and there's things that we can do to make it better for ourselves. And I think that's really the biggest key.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's the tough part, people come and go, and during the holiday seasons, I believe it's when we remember the most, Probably on their birthdays and on those holiday seasons kind of, gatherings like, oh yeah, I used to
Exactly.
spend Christmas you know, with that loved one and so and so. So yeah, man, I feel you.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about grief at the dining room table, or the family table, it's a challenge for a lot of people to deal with, because there's a lot of people that lose their family around the holidays for whatever reason. It's a very high loss time as well. Um, I would say probably about one, two. I have at least five people that died right around the holidays. So it just seems like it's a popular time. I guess I don't know. I think it's the stress. I think it's also the family getting together, where some people let go at that point because they know they're with the family. Um, and it's an interesting reasons why some of this might happen. When you start thinking about it. So, but we're gonna talk through this and kind of figure out how do we make space for the people that we love, and the memories and the loss, because we need to do that. um and we're gonna go into the the simple rituals that to honor those loved ones, like having a place setting at the table for all the loved ones. You don't need one for everyone, but you can have one and that represents all. We do that at our Thanksgiving table and our Christmas table. We always have a setting, because there's several family members that have gone, and they normally would be at that table, with all their cheer and noise and everything else. And we want to remember that, and we try to remember them in the good and positive side of it, because it's about the joy and the celebration of them.
That's just beautiful, brother. That's just beautiful. I love what you just said, because having that the setting, and remembering that person, brings a lot of joy, like,
Mhm.
hey, that's amazing, love that.
Yeah, yeah, and if you're, it's not everyone has the big families, but in for me, we always have a big family dinner that I go to. So that's the place where you miss that person. Like we had some great people there that are no longer with us, but we still want to remember them. So this is our way of going through that and figuring out how to give the best of it. So it's that simple ritual of honoring our loved ones. Some people might light a candle. Some people might put ornaments on the tree. There are many ways that you can honor those loved ones. A bouquet of flowers just in honor of them. There's all sorts of things you can do. So it doesn't always have to be a table setting, but just something to remember them is a great thing to do.
And a question for you, Rich. I see. I never went through such a big loss, but I see people sometimes, they are scared to remember those, and to
Mhm.
honor those people, not because they don't care, but because it brings a lot of emotion to the
Yeah.
table. And how to deal with that, and how you dealt with that, from your
For me,
experiences.
I had to go through different things to deal with it. There was a year where I didn't want to be around, and I had to kind of push myself, and that's where the challenge is. Sometimes you just need to push yourself to
Hmm.
get through those things because it's there is no perfect way of getting over the loss of someone. You have to process that grief yourself, but being around those who love that person can help a lot. So the support of others and being there during a holiday, even when you don't want to be, it can change the mood a little bit there. Like it can bring you, elevate you up a little bit from being in that depression. So I highly recommend, even when you don't want to, try to go and be with the family. It's such a important thing to remember and share and celebrate. Because if it's they're not, though they might be gone, the celebration is that they're in a better spot, and our memories are always there for them, and they're always in our heart, and we want to honor that. So that's the thing. Just it's remembering the good of everything, and enjoying that holiday season with the family or friends.
Amazing.
And then we want to navigate that gathering healing that we just talked about. So you know we got to navigate those gatherings to a point, because like I said, most people want to not be engaged with anyone. They when they lose someone, they just want to curl up and go under the covers, and that's that. But you know that's okay for maybe a little bit to work through it, but there's a point where you need to pick up and move on with your life, and one of those things is keeping involved with the family or friends, being part of those important things, whether it's a birthday celebration or Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's or whatever. Finding those points where you can celebrate life as well as those who we remember. So we don't have to forget them. It's about having them be part of your life and moving on.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love, the experience of gatherings, being around people that you love, being around people that you care about and that they care about you. I believe is the best medicine, for anything, not only grief, but yeah, healing and celebrating and having faith. Sometimes you just went through a breakup, or you change jobs, or you're going through a tough time, and sometimes I was in that in that specifically space, like, hey, just going through a tough time, things were really doing well at work and stuff like that. So I was like, I just rather be at home, or or just chill by myself. But by doing that, obviously right now I realize this is I was like just grieving by myself. I
Mhm.
was not healing. I was just, kind of going through the moment and in that sorrow, if I might say,
I think that's a really good point. You're mentioning about the grief that you're having, but it not always necessarily it has to be about the loss of somebody. It could be
So,
the loss of a job. It could be having troubles at a job. There's all sorts of other types of griefs that we can be having that can make this holiday season even more difficult to navigate through. I know I've been there myself. Work is crazy, and I can't think of anything else but that. Or I'm not getting along with a family member and I don't want to deal with them, things like that. There's always little things that happen that can cause you from making you want to pull back. But the challenge always is, and the push that you should always try to give yourself whenever possible, is to be part of those things still. I mean, of course, if it's not going to be healthy for you in one way or the other that you need that time, then that's what you need to do. But if it's something that you can work through it with your family. Work through it with your friends. Let them be there to support you as well. You're not in it alone. And that's the thing. And if you are someone who doesn't have family around, the other thing is just having that time with others around you. Then go to a movie, go someplace where you're in a crowd of other people, where you can enjoy the environment and not be you know sitting there by yourself. Like it's easy to do that, and it's not like the end of the world if you have to do that. But on that same note, if you can find something to do so you're not feeling down and low, that I highly recommend, because it's getting yourself out, even if it's just going for a walk.
yes, definitely. And whenever I hear you talk about this, Rich, I remember, probably the best moments that I had through the holiday seasons were the simplest ones, like small gatherings, not anything lavish, or
Mhm.
in a fancy place, So because it's all about the people that we are
Yep.
around and we are surrounded with, that's what makes, like, you feel like I have spent Christmas from like bonfires on the beach to fancy restaurants to fancy dinners, and just humble ones, with
Mhm.
a little turkey or this or that, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had all those different ones too, and even like my last Christmas with my mom, it was at the nursing home, me and her sitting in the room together having turkey, and that was her thing. And she couldn't eat much. It was coming to the end for her, but we got to sit there together and enjoy. And it was sad because she couldn't be with the family, but I was honored that I could be there with her. And so holiday seasons can change, and your what your memories are can change, but that doesn't mean they always have to be that way too. I know a lot of people, they've had their family members die on Christmas, and that, I'm sure, is the most difficult of all, when you have a family member that passes right on that day. Because it's going to be a memory every time. It's going to hit and go be hard for them. um, but that's also the time where you can take that step forward and go, let's celebrate them now. They've yes, it was a tragedy. It was a bad time for it. But on that same note, the family was together, they were around, things like that. Like, there's blessings behind it that you don't even realize.
Definitely. And I believe, if you allow me to say, I believe was one of the best, moments that your mother had, was to spend Christmas with you, and to have you there. So that's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, My father, he got sick. He was sick with leukemia, but on Christmas Day we were about to have dinner, and it was too much, and he had to go to the hospital. And then a few days later, it was, he had passed. So I get how these days can be hard because you remember that, and you go, okay, well, this happened on Christmas. This happened, during Christmas week. Like my mom, she died pretty much like 1 day difference than my dad, like years apart, but they
Hmm.
were a day difference in their passing. So you know, it was that same week, that same pretty much scenario was happening. Like, she got pretty bad on Christmas Day, and it kind of went down from there. So it was like almost like a repeating for me, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this again. But I got to be there for it too, and that was the other part of it. There was I was home, I was there, I could be, I could take that time because it was the right time of the year where I didn't have to worry about stuff. So there was a blessing behind it, as much as it was a rough and sad time for us all.
That's beautiful, brother. That's beautiful.
Why do you think people feel guilty about being joyful during this season?
Hmm. I believe sometimes, people feel guilty because, they obviously think about all the other ones that might not have the same opportunity as them, to
Mhm.
be with their loved ones or to have a turkey at the table, or to have something to eat, even, So I see a lot of people saying, like, hey, it's not right to do something like that when a lot of people, are starving or this and that, and I know people that spend their Christmas giving out people food,
Mhm.
on the streets because they believe it's not right to do otherwise. What do
Yeah.
you think?
I think that's definitely one of the things. And I think the other thing that happens a lot is when you're in that mode of being sad and hurting, you feel like you're going to bring everyone else down, and it's going to ruin that day for others. So you decide, oh, I'm not going to be there because I don't want to um,
Hmm.
make it worse for everyone else. But the reality is that by being there, that could be turned around for you, and that could help you get through that time, because your friends and family, they want to help you too. They're there to support
Yeah,
you and help you get through that time. So
100%.
it's something to remember when you're dealing with those time periods like that. It's okay to go and be sad still, um, but it's your chance to kind of change that tone of what the day is about and start to rebuild it for yourself.
Definitely love that. Yeah, agree. Sometimes we're guilty that we're not, in the best mood, and we don't want to, pull people down, and and change the environment. But like, we shouldn't feel guilty about that. People would be happy to make us happy, for example.
Exactly. Exactly. And then you can always honor the person. You like I said, you light the candle, you cook a favorite dish, you tell this we tell stories all the time, at the table at Thanksgiving. We're always telling stories about the family members that aren't here, because it's our way of remembering them, and how they would react, at the food or the songs or whatever the case may be. And it's a great way of sharing that memory with everyone. Um, and of course, photos. You can have the photo books and things like that. And little small acts. Like going to the cemetery with friends and things like that. I mean, you can do all sorts of things to honor and remember those family members.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about this, makes me realize as well that it's okay to feel.
Hmm.
It would not be okay not to feel. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, we're not supposed, and I believe that's a dogma. Believe. that we need to be all the time happy, with a
Yeah.
smile in our faces. It's okay to walk up to a dinner, and if somebody asks you like, "Hey, Khalil, how are you doing?" "Oh man, you know what? Not so well because of this or that, or I missed this or that." That's okay. Or hey, no, stuff's I just had a breakup, or I just hit a toe, on the on the step. So for any reason, like it's okay to feel,
Yeah.
that's what makes us alive. That
Yeah.
like that's what's
And
up.
it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be grieving. It's even okay if it's very fresh and new for you. It's okay to stay home if that's what you need for yourself, but make
Hmm.
sure it's for yourself and not for others. If you're
Exactly.
staying home for others, that's the wrong reason. If you're staying home because you need that time for yourself, then okay. Then that's what you need to do to take care of
Yeah.
yourself, because in the reality you need to take care of yourself when you're dealing with those things, because if you don't, it's going to only get worse for yourself. So the best thing to do is to take that time and let yourself heal in essence. But again, if you're doing it only because you're afraid you're going to bring down the others, that's not a good reason. You need to then give that extra push to be there with that family, because then you can all remember that person, and keep that spirit going.
Amazing.
And and sometimes during a dinner or something like that, because of the stories that come up or because of the memories that come up, you might get overwhelmed for a minute. And it's okay to say, hey, I need to step away from it, go outside, go to the bathroom. It's okay to cry if you need to. Go find a place to just be quiet for a minute and gather yourself again. You don't have to swallow down your feelings and pretend that nothing happened. It's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to be sad for a little bit, because those are our emotions that we're dealing with. Um, and it's okay to even let others know that, hey, you know, I, hearing all this is great and I love it, but it also makes me a little sad right now. And you gotta remember all those things. So
Yeah, I love that because I was in that place once. Sometimes we don't want to be the party stopper, and like, hey, oh my God, I cannot cry, or I cannot say that I'm a bit sad because I'm gonna be the star of the show, or this or that, or catch your attention. But it's okay, like you said, just put somebody to the side, or
mhm.
go outside, and and talk to people. I believe the best way to deal with those emotions is to talk, you know
Yep.
and obviously you gotta, and I love those gatherings, because normally I remember, I love to talk to the older people, they're so wise, and they're so serene, that I remember even as a young kid, I would always catch myself talking to the grandmas and grandpas,
Yeah.
and old uncles, because they have so much, experience about
Yeah.
everything that we're going through in life. They went through grief, they went through losses, to jobs and experiences and breakups and
Yeah.
whatever we imagine they went through.
They have the wisdom. They have the wisdom
They
that we
have
need.
the wisdom.
And,
Exactly.
and eventually you'll be the point where you have the wisdom to pass down. So
Exactly.
I remember being your age and going, oh yeah, I love being around that. And now here I am, getting closer to that. So, but it's
Awesome.
all good, I mean, and we have to respect the differences between each other, because some grieve differently than others, and it's okay. Some may want to talk more and some may just want to maybe listen, or just sit with somebody. It's okay. Sometimes you just need the silence, but it's nice to have a friend sitting next to you while you're dealing with that.
Yeah.
um or even being in the same room. Sometimes maybe it's not next to you, but maybe it's in the same room, but there's
Sometimes just somebody holding our hand,
yeah.
not saying anything, it's enough. or bring it as a cup of water or juice, or
Yeah.
whatever you have. And that's love. That shows caring.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that grief is not a group project. It is an individual thing that you have to deal with, but that doesn't mean you can't rely on the group to help you deal with your day to day, or give you that other insight. You can allow multiple paths to coexist, where everybody deals with that grief in a different way. Um, but having that communication of dealing with it is also just as important.
I mean, I love that as well. It's like scrubbing something, that there's dirt, and it might get infectious, and we just gotta it's just gonna hurt a little bit, and again, it's okay to hurt a little bit.
Yeah. Now, sometimes you have those big holiday parties or something like that, and it might be harder to deal with something like that because now you're dealing with a lot of people and things like that. And and how do you deal with that when you have while you're carrying that grief? Is there a way? Because sometimes you have to. Maybe it's for your work or whatever. And you got to be in an essence on. Um, but just remember, choose what realistically you can handle. Say yes to what feels supportive or meaningful, and give yourself permission to step away. It's okay. I mean, you do your best and you try to be there, but if you say, hey, I need to go early, or I can't be here for everything. Like, it's okay to tell the host,
Uh,
hey, I'm just going to come in, say hello, be here for a little bit, but then I really just need to step away. And everyone will understand that. It's okay to have that balance, and it's important to have a balance, especially when you're dealing with fresh grief. It's when it just happens, it's so much more to deal with because you don't know how to get through all those things right away, and your mind is still going on the memories and the grief and everything else. So it's important to be gentle with yourself, and just let the process happen.
I love that. It talks about boundaries. Respecting our boundaries of what we're going through. Like, hey, I go, I can go to this certain point. Hey,
Mhm.
I'm only gonna go to 9 p.m. and that's it. Or
Yeah.
like, hey, whenever the dinner's it's complete, I'm gonna bounce off, and those kind of things. I believe it's important to respect that your process, and what are you up
Yeah.
to, and what kind of engagement are you looking for, what kind of networking you're going to do, like you said, if it's a work thing, if it's a family thing, like, hey, all right, yeah.
And why do you think it's important that we acknowledge the grief instead of pretending that everything's fine? Because I know many people that would do that. Why is it important that we acknowledge it?
uh I believe it's, it comes back to self knowledge, and it's like whenever we get hurt, and whenever we get a scratch,
Hmm.
if we avoid it, it's gonna get worse. And
Hmm.
the
Yep.
same thing happens with our emotions. Like, again, it's okay to feel, to grieve, to be a little bit sorrow, and it's
Hmm.
okay, because that's what makes us alive. What we got to do is we got to understand what's behind that emotion.
Yep.
So I believe that's why it's so important to talk about it, with psychologists, friends, families, whatever. It's important to talk, because it helps us understand what's going on,
Hmm.
instead of just looking the other way. And whenever we look the other way, I believe that's when bad things happen, because we don't know, and that emotion just grows and grows and grows. And whenever we
Mhm.
see it, like, because we didn't look deep into it, it's just gonna kind of take over everything else, because we
Exactly.
don't know we don't know where the emotions coming from. And sometimes we believe that it's because I'm going to the park, or because I had a breakup, or because of this. But no, you got to understand, like, analysis. You got to, like, hey, why am I feeling this? Oh, I'm feeling this because of this. But why am I, so there's a lot of good frameworks to use it, to understand, and to deal with it.
Hmm.
What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And it's I think the connection point that you made, it's like that scratch or like having a splinter. When you get a splinter
Hmm.
and it's if it's in there too long, it starts to fester and then it gets infected and then it gets worse and worse. But if you take the time to pull that out, which is kind of the grief, that initial
Right.
thorn of the grief, you got to help work that out, and then with that out, there's a chance of healing to start happening. Until you can process that out, you're it's going to fester in you. So it is important that you acknowledge the grief instead of pretending that it's everything is fine. It's okay too, and you want to create the room for both love and sadness because they exist together, and it should be without shame. I know a lot of people think being sad is a something to be shameful about, but it's not. It's part of the human life.
I love it. I love the splinter analogy, and we got to rub it off. We got to, put some soap and water, and scrub that thing,
Yep.
until it's clean.
Yep.
That's how we heal, and that's how we're also able to move forward.
Exactly. It's that little thorn that if you leave fester, but if you can pull that thorn out, doesn't mean that the grief is going away. It just means the main part of what's causing the sadness and all, you're pulling that out so that you can move forward. And it doesn't mean that you're it's going to go away or anything like that. It's the starting process of a healing. Um, it will never fully heal. I can tell you that. I know myself. It does take just time for you to kind of get to a point where it feels okay. But it does get better. It doesn't, again, it doesn't go away, but it does get better.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, what's the main message that we want to leave people with tonight? What do you think of all this that we got out of this?
That's I love this movie, I don't know if you remember, but it's called Into the Wild. Remember this movie from back in the days?
Kind of. I think I do. I think I do.
Yeah. So anyways, the movie's about a kid, that straight out of college. He just dropped everything and went out into the world, and he's very famous. I believe you're gonna remember. He end up he found an old bus in Alaska, and that's where he spent the last days. And
Hmm.
he had so they had to remove the bus from that, because a lot of people would get lost, trying to find the bus. But anyways, the long story short is, during his journals, he said one thing, that caught a lot of attention. Is happiness is only real when shared, so there's a lot of interpretations around this, but I believe the message that I want to give to people is, like, hey, it's so great to be around people that we love, you
Hmm.
know, and that's and I believe that's the spirit of the holiday season. It's just, if you're looking for any excuse to get together, that's your excuse.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you can dodge a bullet, but you cannot dodge holiday season. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
if you're an introvert, extrovert, or whatever, during the holiday seasons, you have the perfect excuse to get together.
Yeah.
And that's where amazing things happen, because sometimes I might haven't spoken to a family member in years because of this. I'm gonna use this, weird example, but sometimes, I haven't spoken to that family member in years, but it was because of a simple misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And during the holiday seasons, that's where we, get things straight, and
Yeah.
like, hey, why have we been talking? Oh, because of this, because of that, and we start laughing. Oh, I can't believe it. So, anyways, funny stuff. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. This is the chance to reconnect and get that. And I think it's important to say that there is no wrong way to move through the season or with grieving. It's something that's really for everyone as their individuals needs. Grief is not an interruption to the holiday season. That's important to remember. It's a part of the human being. Like we all grieve, not just some people. Everyone grieves in one way or the other, and you're allowed to miss. You're allowed to remember. You're allowed to feel whatever comes up. If it's tears, if it's a sad memory, whatever the case may be, it's okay. And we need to allow that to happen for ourselves so that we can heal and grow and move forward in our lives. And again, you're not moving forward without them. You're moving forward with them in your heart. And that's the important thing to remember. Yeah.
Definitely. And we are always here, in Corners Conversations every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and Thursdays at noon, and on Corners Social Network, the place where you can find real people and have meaningful conversations. We have different corners depending on your interest, and all the corners, they have their own nooks where you can literally jump in a video call and meet with people from all over the world.
Exactly.
That's what's up.
That's
That's
what's
how
up.
we share our joy. That's how we get together. And that's how we celebrate life. Right, Rich?
Exactly. Exactly. Life is important, and we can't let you know things take us out of it. We need to keep involved in it and keep growing with others and keep connected. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing. Keep connected to those around you.
That's what's up. And right now, we're going to jump into Corner Social Network in the Lounge Nook to keep the conversation going. It's a different experience, different from this live stream where we kind of talk and you guys listen and interact in the comments. The nooks inside Corners, they are literally a video call room where we, like a coffee shop, we sit down at the table, have whatever you're having and have a good old conversation. What do you say,
Exactly.
Rich?
Yep. So let's go on over, and we'll have the corners conversation continued on corners, and we'll have some good talks there. So anyone who wants to join us, please come on over. Love to have you there and join that conversation. Khalil is going to be on Thursday, so it is Thanksgiving, but Khalil is on with a special guest, so look forward to that. And I will see you all next Monday, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. See
Take
y'all.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.